وشعبنا واحد يعيش يعيش فليعيش الله أكبر يا خليج مضمنا الله أكبر الله أكبر يا خليج مضمنا الله أكبر مصيرنا واحد وشعبنا واحد.
God created humans to be free. However, man can only become a true citizen after appreciating his God-given freedom through a long process of awareness and learning that spreads over a lifetime. Freedom is a skill that requires training, improving, and adapting.
The Gulf countries are unique. The rulers are very close to their people, and vice versa. This is the source of our success, and is something that we all recognize.
GCC societies are, by their nature, very open to the rights of their people. The necessity of creating an atmosphere that is conducive to individual awareness and enlightenment is strongly believed in, so that freedom, in its truest sense, can be practiced and maintained effectively. People need to be conscious of their duties and be able to practice them effectively so that their rights can, in turn, be experienced. Certain characteristics are prevalent when describing the societies of GCC countries as they spread and feed the sense of democracy. Being small in size, having a tradition of shura and consultation, and belonging to the Islamic world are but a few of these characteristics. When calling for rights, it is only natural for a society to simultaneously bring duties and obligations to mind. Democracy is being fed and freedoms are growing at a constant rate, one that corresponds to society's awareness. From this, one is able to get a better feeling and understanding of the reality of Shoura and democratic life in the Gulf. They are free societies that share the responsibility of maintaining the commonalities of religion, history, culture, and heritage. Furthermore, they are also societies where the rulers actively encourage citizen participation in democratic political life, both inside and outside the official arena. To know more about the practice of democracy in the Gulf region, it is important to observe a few salient details. These are countries that link democracy to faith and religion so that coherent, stable societies are achieved, yet at the same time, change and improvement are also positively encouraged to take place. Through this, society is better able to tolerate pressures and to confront challenges.
Each country has its own political and social circumstances that reflect on developments in the system of governance and rule. Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia have experienced success and failures, but over time, they have achieved a great deal.
The application of democracy has come a long way to the United Arab Emirates despite the relatively young age of the country's political environment. One of the most notable transformations is demonstrated by society, which is shifting from a trend where social and political issues were addressed on tribal values to one where all of society's affairs are managed by a government consisting of modern organizations dominated by political, social, and economic expertise. The democratic movement began in 1971 in the United Arab Emirates when the country began legislations to build a modern society socially, politically, and economically. The Emirati experience is also praised for its constitution, which encourages the country's leaders to prepare citizens for democracy so that benefits can be properly reaped and disadvantages minimized. The transparency of the Emirati press and media is a case in point. The members of the Council of the Union proposed a permanent constitution that set out the government's legislating, monitoring, and supervising functions and the selection of council members through direct elections. This came as an amendment to the country's temporary constitution, which was approved in 1996. The first step in the reform movement was when the Higher Council approved the amendment of the temporary constitution by eliminating the word temporary anywhere it is stated in the constitution, and performed the necessary steps to go forward with amendments and pass it on to the National Council for ratification and issuance from the head of the state. And with this reform, the United Arab Emirates realized a state of political stability under the umbrella of a permanent constitution, and work continued in that manner to run the country for more than 25 years. In truth, this progress is credited to the democratic process overall and to the character of the founder of the UAE, the late Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. In 1997, he issued a decree for the reformation of the Union of the Council to correspond to the articles of the permanent constitution of the state. The intention was to have elections within the next 5 years, whereby all members of the Council of the Union would be directly elected by the citizens of the state. This was considered the first reform for the National Council in accordance with the constitution that was implemented in December of 1996. The intention was to have elections within the next 5 years, whereby all members of the Council of the Union would be directly elected by the citizens of the state.
Democracy and the establishment of the parliament is viewed as central to the process of building our future in an era marked by globalization, openness, and fresh experiences. No longer should citizens feel that their lives are formulated by decisions coming from above. They will now contribute fully in the decision-making process.
In the year 1992, the late Emir of Bahrain, Sheikh Isa bin Salman Al Khalifa, issued a decree stipulating the appointment of 30 members to the country's Shura Council. Article 2 of the Emiri decision for the year 1992 stated the responsibilities of the Shura Council. These duties include representing opinion, consultation regarding bills of laws, development projects, and discussion of issues forwarded by the Council of Ministry for study and opinion. The Council also had the right to present opinions on construction, projects, and economic, social, educational, and health service policies. The Council has proven a high degree of competence in addressing all issues and projects. It is also a great example of flexible collaboration that benefits the nation as a whole. When King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa took over rule in Bahrain in 1999, many legislative and constitutional reforms began taking place, including the formation of the Supreme National Committee to formulate the national charter that contained general principles on how to manage the political and economic issues confronting the country. Almost 98% of voters supported this national charter. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has had a Shura system in place since it was founded in 1927 by the late King Abdul Aziz Al Saud. The council first had 8 members, then 5 were added, and by the year 1950 it had 20 members. The late King Saud bin Abdul Aziz issued a royal decree to increase the number of members to 25 in the year 1955 and to have weekly sessions. This system continued until the late King Fahd bin Abdul Aziz issued a decree formulating the new Shura Council in 1991 and setting out the internal system of operations. The council had a chairman and 60 members. 30 members were added to the council in 1997. Their responsibilities were discussion of economic and social plans and presenting opinion, the study of systems, international treaties, and privileges, and finally to debate the annual reports presented to them by ministries and government agencies. In the year 2001, the number of members was increased to 120, which allowed for the younger generation to contribute to the political, social, and economic process of the country. This increase did not include any of the members of the Saudi royal family, confirming the transformation of the Saudi Shura system, one that has become a thriving example of the gradual application of democracy.
الديمقراطية وسيلة حكم.
Democracy is a way of rule. It is a concept that came to us from other cultures. However, the word democracy really means increasing the participation of citizens in the management of their country's affairs. I believe we are capable of coming up with a formula that fits our individual societies, whether democracy or through shura.
التي تمكننا من المشاركة في اتخاذ القرار، المشاركة في وضع أساسيات وهياكل تحكم العمل في الدولة. أنا في اعتقادي سميها ديمقراطية، سميها شورى، القضية ما المسميات، أهم شيء هو دائما المضمون.
The application of Shura in Oman refers back to Sultan Qaboos bin Said's decision to activate Al-Sibla councils. Al-Sibla were councils where tribes would meet to discuss different matters. At a later stage, the idea was developed into an open parliament where the Sultan held popular meetings with citizens during his annual trip to the different areas and states within the Sultanate. The Consultative Council was established in 1981. Later, in 1991, it was developed into the Shoura Council that shared the legislative authority with the state through the Council of Oman. The manner in which Oman has decided to develop the participation of citizens in the management of their country is one that is gradual yet vibrant. 5 elections have taken place since the establishment of the Shoura Council and have had many implications on political life. These include encouraging individuals over the age of 21 to vote and promoting transparency of the elective process through modern technology. The legislative authority in the state of Qatar consists of 2 aspects: the Shoura Council and the Central Municipal Council. The permanent constitution necessitates the opinion of the Shoura Council on bills of law before issuing the final laws. The initiative of strengthening the Shoura Council in Qatar stems from a strong belief in the need for reorganizing the country to better interact with the demand of the era and the future challenges it will face as it strives to achieve an advanced position in social and economic development. Under the permanent constitution, the Shoura Council is granted vast legislative and supervisory authority through issuing legislation, approving the state budget, and monitoring the executive authority.
The National Assembly of Kuwait is the oldest form of parliament in the Gulf. The National Assembly not only played an important role in drafting the country's constitution, but it is also vital in terms of legislation and overlooking the activities of the government. The performance of the government is evaluated by the members of the parliament. Therefore, it is only natural that the government builds its agendas and strategic plans based on recommendations made by the National Assembly.
أنا أعتقد جازم بأن ما وصلت إليه دول الخليج الآن من وجود مجالس للشورى وأيضا مجالس.
The current existence of Shura councils and national assemblies in the Gulf is a giant step towards achieving real democracy.
The legislative authority in Kuwait consists of 1 council, the National Assembly. It consists of 50 members that are selected by direct elections. Ministers that are appointed to the government are considered members of parliament. The National Assembly has a legislative function and a financial function, whereby the council approves the budget of the state and monitors the executive authority. In the event of a breach of trust, the council can call on the minister in charge to resign. The practice of democracy in Kuwait is not one that was formulated randomly. It came about as a result of historical events and popular demands that eventually shaped the relationship between ruler and citizens. In Kuwait, popular action led to the formulation of the regulatory committee that set the ground rules for the Foundational Council, where 20 members of parliament were elected in 1961. These members were eventually successful in producing a permanent constitution that received approval from all. Another characteristic of the Kuwaiti democratic experience is its continuity. It has not been interrupted since Kuwait's independence, where the Legislative Council was formed as the country's parliament and played a major role in formulating the political system of Kuwait, a system that went through turbulences caused by exercising, grillings, and questioning, hence a true practice of democracy. Since the state's constitution took effect in 1962, parliamentary practice in Kuwait included more than 20 grilling sessions that in total reflect a mature practice of democracy and a growing level of awareness amongst the leaders of both the state and community, with the ultimate goal of achieving the ambitions of the law and institutions. Democracy in GCC countries stems from a written contract between authority and the different sectors of citizens. The contract promotes the practice of democracy in correspondence with the cultural and religious heritage of the nations. Perhaps the formation of the consultative agency for the Supreme Council for the GCC is evidence of the Council's real desire to promote wider popular participation in decision-making. The leaders of the region have followed a sturdy yet steady march towards a future of sound democratic practice that better serves the interests of the GCC nations.